In this section, we're going to learn about subscriptions and how they let us consume data from the outside world. In this video, we'll learn about what a subscription is and what they're used for. Let's get the big obvious question out of the way. A subscription is a long-running effect that reacts to state. Hyperapp treats subscriptions like a separate view function, another function of state, but instead of virtual DOM trees, it returns a collection of subscriptions. We can start, restart, or stop subscriptions by reacting to state changes. Remember this diagram from the last section? We know app uses our init, view, and node parameters we pass into it, but there is one final piece to add to fully understand what Hyperapp does under the hood. App also accepts a subscriptions function that takes in state and returns a collection of subscriptions. Every time our state changes, Hyperapp runs our subscription function. Internally, Hyperapp will figure out which subscriptions are new, changed, and removed, and will start, restart, or stop them accordingly. Just like an effect interacts with the outside world, subscriptions are also a safe place to access external resources. The main difference is that while effects are meant to be one-off calls, subscriptions are meant to listen and wait for information and then pass that information back into Hyperapp using our newly made friend, Dispatch. Here's some great examples of what a subscription is meant to do. Listen to events, run controlled intervals, or listen to data from other outside sources. If you are using an external resource that you give a function and that function gets called multiple times until we remove that function, it belongs in a subscription. That leads me to my next point. Subscriptions clean up after themselves. Subscriptions can start and stop multiple times over the lifespan of your application. We need to make sure that starting will begin any listeners we need, and stopping will cancel those listeners. To achieve this, our subscription must return a function that cancels our listeners. This could be a function that calls clear interval or remove event listener. At this point, you might be wondering why we can't just use regular effects like we did with actions. There's two answers to that. First, effects are not meant to be controlled. We start them, and then they may or may not return information to our application. Second, and most importantly, effects aren't able to react to state. Alright, let's wrap it up with a recap. Subscriptions are long-running effects. Just like effects, subscriptions take props and dispatch. Subscriptions consume external data streams. If the data doesn't live directly in our state, but changes over time, it belongs in a subscription. Subscriptions are self-cleaning. When a subscription starts, it may run timers and event listeners, so when it stops, we need to cancel those timers and remove the listeners. And that concludes Subscriptions 101.